So today we're going to talk about understanding students with ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So the most important thing, not the most important thing, but the first thing we're going to talk about is how many students are affected with this today. And we're going to start with a CDC chart that I found. It was done in 2011-2012, where 11% of children ages 4 to 17 were found to have ADHD, and that's based off parent reporting. Currently, it's found in 1 in 52 students are diagnosed with ADHD. So let's look at the trend here. We want to know how has the number of students with ADHD increased, and what are some of the reasons that we're seeing this uptick in ADHD. And a CDC did a study on the increases of ADHD diagnosis, and this chart kind of reflects that according to like the DSM 1, 2, 3, and R. If you want to pause the video and take a deeper look at that, you can. And one of the reasons we are seeing an uptick in ADHD is that it's overdiagnosed. Parents and teachers are wanting answers for why kids can't sit still and aren't learning, so they go to the doctor and pressure them into diagnosing their child with ADHD so they can get medicine to send to school with them so they can sit still. A lot of reasons are kind of seen with the decrease in outside activity time, cuts in recesses, cuts in PE, and that kind of thing. And we're also seeing upticks because there's a lack of structure in a child's life. There's poor sleeping, there's poor eating. A lot of things a child's exposed to can kind of increase that hyperactivity in a student. And you see that due to a lot of technology and digital gadgets. We'll kind of watch a clip here.
5 million kids diagnosed with ADHD, 8 million adults diagnosed at one point. So that's a lot of medication being circulated out there, and it is a problem because the DEA, has to release some amphetamine to the drug manufacturers to make this, but they don't want too much of it out there because if there's a lot of stockpiles, then it's easier for that to get into the wrong hands.
Yeah, and Jim, your specialty, I mean, you're in the front lines when it comes to making that call, evaluating kids at that age. Yeah. Is it being overdiagnosed?
Oh, without a doubt. A lot of the times, this is diagnosed in just one quick appointment. Doctor, I'm having a hard time paying attention. I think I have ADHD. Okay, well, what are your symptoms? I can't pay attention. Okay, well, here's your prescription.
And that is just dead wrong.
Again,
there's a lot of pressure. The kids, oftentimes their grades aren't doing well, and there's a lot of pressure to succeed in school, and they want the quick fix.
It's probably not in their best interest.
Yeah, and it's not, because there's side effects. There's, stunted growth, appetite suppression, depression in kids. And we really don't know the long-term effects of this. You can't just diagnose this in one quick appointment. There's got to be kind of a multi-faceted approach to this.
So let's acknowledge that some kids obviously benefit greatly from being on these medications. In some cases, maybe they don't need to be on medicines. What are things that parents can emphasize to their kids to do if they're trying to avoid these medications?
Right, and that's a talk I have with my parents when we do diagnose that. And it's easy. It's not rocket science. Simple 5 to 10 to 20 minutes of exercise in the morning before school. Even if you can walk to school, that can make a huge difference in how you pay attention. If you eat better, omega-3s, omega-3 oil supplements, or eating a lot of fish, has a huge impact on how your brain works. Sugar, with these parents, I say, okay, if we're going to start the medication, before that, I want you to try at least 2 weeks of not a no sugar diet, but just a normal, healthy diet. Just cut out all that extra sugar, soda, juice, cookies, all the stuff that kids really don't need all the time. Cut it way down, and many times I get a call a week later from the parent, hey, Dr. Jim, we fixed the problem. I don't need the prescription. We're good.
Well, that was kind of an overview of why you've seen such a trend in the upward direction of ADHD being diagnosed, and there being so many students with that diagnosis. Poor sleeping, poor eating, not enough exercise, and then you overdiagnose them because you have students and parents going and getting one visit and then they're diagnosed. So there's really no research behind the symptoms. There's a really big push to get a quick diagnosis, so that's why you see it trending upwards. So specifics. What are specific behaviors, characteristics, and in what ways do the characteristics make it difficult for students to learn and participate? We're first going to talk about the health and the symptoms of ADHD. Behavioral, you see aggression, lack of restraint, persistent repetition of words or actions, irritability, no self-control, really impulsive. And that's just the outward behaviors. Cognitively, you see absent-mindedness, short attention spans, problems paying attention, forgetfulness, and just you see them, they can't focus. Mood-wise, they experience anger, boredom, depression, mood swings, a lot of anxiety, and that's something you'd see behavioral-wise also. And then, like I said, something that's super common with ADHD is depression and the learning disability aspect of it. So our important takeaway from this is they're treatable but not curable. Someone will always have ADHD, and they can take medications to help with symptoms. But medications aren't always the answer. You always need to add the diet changes, activity level increase, and different things like that. So it's kind of an overall lifestyle change to help with the symptoms of ADHD. At school, symptoms make learning difficult on these three levels here: behavioral, cognitive, and mood. First, behavioral. Sitting still to learn material is harder. The fidgeting can get students in trouble. Also, along with fidgeting, impulsiveness or doing or saying things out of turn or that are inappropriate can also impair a student's learning because they're in trouble all the time. Cognitively, if a student isn't there in class, they're not learning anything. So that absent-mindedness makes it difficult. So that present mentality, they're not there, so they're not really learning. And then mood makes it hard for learning. If we're agitated or we're experiencing some anxiety, it's hard to move past those things and really be engaged in what's learning. So mood plays an important part in the school and the learning aspect. So our important takeaway from this is knowing that these students are experiencing these things and then being able to help them with material and differentiating their instruction so maybe they can engage and can be learning. Different symptoms, the teacher knowing these symptoms is helpful because it can come up with other approaches besides medication. Maybe that student just needs a 10-minute break to walk around the halls and then they can sit and lecture, or they need an extra bathroom break throughout the day, just to kind of break up the monotony of school, because sometimes school isn't always the most exciting thing. At home, you don't really see a ton of complications at home because there isn't a required schedule that you have to follow. A student has to be here, they have to be doing this, they need to be learning this at these specific times. So behavioral-wise, you don't see too many problems at home. Cognitively, their symptoms might be a little less noticeable because of the less requirements, and their moods. There are fewer triggers, so you might not see as many mood swings in either direction as super anxiety or super depressed or anything like that. So we'll look at the important takeaways. They may not experience these difficulties at home, but they do need the support and the routine and structure at home, along with their healthy diets and exercise and different things like that, so that they can be prepared to be at school, be prepared to be at class and have that readiness. So we'll talk about severity. Do all students with ADHD demonstrate the same characteristics? No, they're all a little bit different. There's a long list of characteristics and symptoms, and I have that in my reference page And to be diagnosed with ADHD, you only have to show 6 signs. 6 signs or 6 characteristics. And those 6 symptoms can be very different. They could be, he has such extreme anxiety and then super aggressive, or they can just be a little aggressive and have a little bit of an anxiety. But the fact that they have those 2 things qualifies them as symptoms that they have. And then those 6 symptoms have to be chronic. They can't just you have it for a week and then you're over it, or you get over being depressed or sad about something and then you move on with life or anything like that. It has to be a constant chronic symptom to be diagnosed with ADHD. And these can all be on varying levels of highs and lows. There's not a specific measure that says at this level at anxiety, you're ADHD, or at this level of inability to pay attention, you're ADHD. So it's very fluid and very hard to accurately diagnose ADHD because there is no set value. It's very, very different amongst all students. So we've been talking about IDEA 2004, and where does it fit in with ADHD, and how does ADHD fit into IDEA? This actually I found really interesting. It fits in to the other health impaired section of the Act, which was added in 1991. It's a policy memorandum that implements the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act for the first time, explicitly incorporating ADHD within the definition of other health impaired. So in the adjustment of 1991, our language really specifies what ADHD requires as far as IEPs, maybe 504 plans or anything like that to help a student learn. So why? Why is ADHD in the other health field? And it's to defining the needs of ADHD is important so that services can be provided appropriately. Like I said, whether it's with the IEP or a Section 504 plan or your basic accommodations in the classroom. And this is where, for me, the most fun comes in is our interventions. Your effective class-wide things that you can do for those who specifically display ADHD qualities. So I titled this One Size Does Not Fit All. Students may be able to sit for different tasks longer than others, so task duration is important. Maybe peer-to-peer tutoring. A student isn't comfortable sitting with maybe a para, but another student may be appropriate. Novelty is a big thing. How exciting or how engaging is your lecture? So that may be a key to some students with ADHD. Visual reminders, auditory reminders, they may need little help being, okay, we need to sit still now, or okay, it's time to be quiet now. And then a big one that was found to help students with ADHD was giving them active jobs throughout the day. Passing out papers, maybe during snack time for little kids, they add a job like passing out the milk or their snack. So that's a good one for the littler kids. And good instruction is what a lot of students with ADHD found were needed. Verbal and visual, good instructions. The vague, okay, let's get started kind of instruction isn't good enough. You need to, okay, let's pull out our pens and our papers and we're going to start by writing down ideas for this assignment or whatever. So very specific instructions. And that might be helpful for kids without ADHD. So that's kind of a good overall kind of intervention that you can do for all your students. So finding your way, you definitely need to find something that works for you, and then maybe just find a peer or two to talk things over with is also a good intervention that you can do with yourself. Here's another clip.
While you're learning. I think they're cool because like you can pedal while you're riding and stuff.
For the person who hasn't seen it, it's like, how can he make this happen and why isn't it chaos? A good rider likes to go ahead and give the details. It works because kids sit too much and they're dying to move.
Come on in, guys. You guys will be working on a little bit of mental math while at some of the stations, some flashcards. Inactive brains. It's a whisper level. We are ready. Go. Have students involved with some sort of physical activity while also working their brains. Can you guys show us a regular plank? Push-up position. You're going to flip over 2 cards at a time, correct? Balance on the balance disc, working on the game. I taught in the classroom for 3 years before doing this. It's just an opportunity to kind of teach in a different way. It's fun for the kids and it's interactive, and I think the results speak for themselves as far as the kids enjoying themselves and just really enjoying taking part in the learning process. We integrate almost all the subjects. It just depends on the day.
If it's tall and it's above the middle, you do a high. D-I-V.
There is another neurotransmitter that is directly connected to muscle movement in the body. That's like taking Miracle-Gro and putting it on the brain.
So I want you to think of a noun.
And what we need to do as teachers is plant the seed in that well-cultivated brain. And that well-cultivated brain comes about by movement and exercise.
We did do a study with the College of Charleston. We've done them several years in a row, and we noticed that there was an increased time on task, and like double the amount. The only thing is that if I was to compare my class to their class, the problem was that I'm not in that class, and they don't have desks. So is it me, or is it the desk, or I'd like to think it's the desks.
I play soccer. I think that the tables are good for if you do sports, since it can help you exercise and get stretched. It's fun instead of sitting at my desk.
How does it make you feel?
Happy.
So it's seen that kids that aren't in trouble for fidgeting, and fidgeting is actually encouraged, pay attention better and are engaged more because they're not worried about maybe getting in trouble for not sitting still or not paying attention. And like the one teacher mentioned, is that their increase in production was significant compared to those classes that didn't have alternative seating. So for ADHD students with true diagnosis can benefit from all of these interventions, including alternative seating, greatly. So there's a lot of things that can be done to help students with ADHD. And the biggest thing for instructors and teachers is to never give up, because there's always an option you have to help your students to become great learners, and that's a fun thing about education. So don't become complacent and never give up, because when that happens, you can fail. So that's ADHD in a nutshell. If you'd like to pause the video, these are the resources I pulled information from and some of the videos that I pulled. Thanks.